The Wannsee Conference by Makoa de Almeida. So what was it? The Wannsee Conference was held in Berlin of 1942 for the government officials of Nazi Germany and Schutzstaffel. This conference was put together by a man named Reinhard Heydrich of the Reich Security Office. Its purpose was to make sure that the leaders of different governments within the plan would work together to deport Jews in any German-occupied place to Poland, where they would be massacred. This was basically the foundational plan for the Holocaust. A bunch of different government officials attended this meeting, and they carefully went over how and where the Jewish would be translocated to kill. Background: Anti-Semitism emerged in full force after the First World War, as a result of the bitter loss that Germans had suffered, looking to lay blame on someone else for their defeat. The rise in anti-Semitism corresponded directly with the Nazis seizing power in 1933. The party highly encouraged the exclusion of Jews from society and used violence, fear, and economic pressure to promote the Jewish to flee the country freely, and was completely illegal to discriminate against them. Some of the core concepts of the Nazi movement included anti-Semitism, racial purity of the Aryan race, eugenics, and the goal of claiming more land for purebred Germans to live on. In September of 1939, after Poland was successfully invaded, the genocide on the Jewish people began, occurring at an even faster rate after the Soviet Union got invaded in 1941. Germany invaded these countries to rid them of Jews and claim the land for themselves. Themselves, of course, being the Aryan race. Jews were discriminated against for a very long time, and much throughout history, and even up until today, there's anti-Semitism in the world. But this time period, of which the Nazis were in power, was by far the peak of the discrimination. On April 7th of January 1933, the law for the restoration of the professional civil service was passed, which prevented most Jews from being included in the legal profession and civil service. More laws were later passed and prevented them from having the right to practice their professions. Later, Jews were physically forced from the country. Jewish businesses were banned from the markets, and Jews were forbidden the access to free speech in the media. They were also denied access to government contracts. They were severely discriminated upon, and no one tried to hide it. It became a social norm in German society, and there's nothing anyone did to stand up against it. Germany was amongst great change, and German pride was the highest it had been in a very long time. In 1935, the Nuremberg laws were passed, which helped to further secure the purity of the Aryan race, which banned marriage of Jews and Germans, sexual intercourse between Jews and Germans, and employment of German women under 45 as servants in a Jewish household. Furthermore, the Reich citizenship law stated that Jews and other minority groups were no longer citizens of Germany and got stripped of their citizenship, practically rendering them no identity or rights in the place they called home. More than 400 anti-Semitic laws were enacted by the Nazis between 1933 and 1938. In November of 1938, the situation worsened as hundreds of Jews were tortured and arrested, and thousands of businesses destroyed in targeted program known as Kristallnacht. By the start of the war in 1939, about 250,000 of Germany's Jews, which is about half, emigrated out of the country to the US, UK, Palestine, and other places around the world. On July 1941, the Hermann Göring gave the word to Reinhard Heydrich, the chief of the Reich Security Main Office, to prepare and submit plan for a total solution of the Jewish question. This, of course, was the plan for the Wannsee Conference. The goal for this was to determine what to do with Jews in German territories and to create a coordinated plan for the effective movement of such a large demographic. Most importantly, they wanted to ensure that all of the involved government organizations were on the same page. they concluded that they would deport the Jews of Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union to the country of Serbia, where they'd be put to work or killed. The Hunger Plan. The Nazis wanted to rid the region of Jews by any means necessary. Another method they brought to the table on their conquest towards genocide was called the Hunger Plan. This plan, created by Herbert Back, ultimately wanted to dissolve the Jewish population through starvation, which would either directly kill them or force them to leave the country. Food would only be provided for the German army and citizens, of which Jews and Slavs were no longer classified as citizens. Around 4 million Soviet citizens starved for 3 grueling years. To make matters worse, Germany had a very poor harvest in 1940 and 1941, making food even scarcer for the starving. On July 8, 1941, Heydrich gave the order to shoot all male Jews between 15 to 45 years old. That order was changed to women, children, and the elderly by August. By the time planning was underway for the Wannsee Conference, hundreds of thousands of Polish, Serbian, and Russian Jews had already been killed. European Jews would be deported to occupied parts of Russia, where they'd be worked to death in road-building projects. On November 1941, Heydrich sent out multiple invitations for the conference to be held in December at the office of Interpol at Kleinen Wannsee. The location was later changed, and on December 5th of 1941, the Soviet army launched a counterattack by Moscow, and in December, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, drawing America into the war. Because of all of this, the meeting was further postponed. At the same time, Hitler declared that the European Jews had to be exterminated immediately compared to after the war, which was the original plan. Because transferring large groups of people into a battle zone was impractical, Heydrich decided that Jews living in German-controlled portions of Poland, as well as Jews from the rest of Europe, would be killed in extermination camps established up in occupied territories of Poland. And in this picture, you can see a picture of Heydrich. These are some of the notable attendees that were at the conference. The conference. On January 8th of 1942, Heydrich sent new invitations to a meeting to be held on January 20th. The venue for the rescheduled conference was at the same villa overlooking Wannsee. The villa had been purchased from Friedrich Munet in 1940 for use as a conference center and guest house. Most participants at the Wannsee Conference were already aware that the Nazi dictatorship had murdered thousands of Jews and other people in German-occupied parts of the Soviet Union and Serbia. The German police and other military forces were already executing tens of thousands of Jews in the German-occupied Soviet Union. Others were aware that German army and police troops were slaughtering Jews in Serbia. No one in the meeting opposed to Heydrich's announcement of the final solution. Able-bodied Jews divided by sex will be transported in massive work columns to the east to work on roads, with the likelihood that a considerable part will perish due to natural causes. Because it's the product of natural selection, it will hypothetically final remnant, which would surely consist of the most resistant portion, which will have to be treated as such. Vague orders could often have specific meaning for members of the regime, especially when people were being ordered to carry out criminal activities. Heydrich proposed that the Jews who were going to be evacuated would first spend time in transit ghettos and then later move to the east. Certain Jews would also be exempt from extermination, including Jews over 65 years old. Jewish World War I veterans that were extremely wounded or received the Iron Cross. The line with mixed Jewish descendants and Jews who married Germans was much more finicky, and cases were to be examined closely to determine whether or not a person was a Jew. Post-conference. Heydrich spoke at the conference for close to an hour and a half, going over the plan, and left the remainder open for questions and concerns regarding his guests that he invited. Many members raised concerns about the difficulties that mixed marriages possessed, and also promoted the idea of mass sterilization. Overall, the meeting went extremely well, and Hager was quite happy with the outcome of the meeting as he expected more resistance from his guests, but was instead strongly supported by his colleagues. Significance. In 1992, on the 50th anniversary of the conference, the building where the meeting was held was opened as a Holocaust Memorial Museum and was named Haus der Wannsee Conference. The museum displays permanent exhibits of materials and photographs which document the meeting itself and the Holocaust as a whole. Cheers.